Okay guys, so I've centered my clay. It's a little harder on the hydro bat because it absorbs the moisture so quickly that you tend to stick to the hydro bat when you're doing it. Plus, the clay down here dries very quickly. So it's hard to get that smooth surface to help you center. I've also had a little bit of an air bubble down in the center, so I've actually just kind of peeled that out a little. Okay, so let's start going. Once you guys notice, I do have a little bit of an indent over here. I am going to start with a cylinder. And what's super important about making this style bowl is that as you pull your walls, you gradually get thicker as you get to the top. Because what we actually want to do is stretch that at the end. And if your walls are evenly consistent all the way through, and let's say they're 1/4 of an inch, when you stretch it out as far as you want it, it's going to become 1/16 of an inch. And we all know that I despise thin lips on my pots. So let's go. Okay, wheel moving fast, the first thing we're going to do is open up. Now, what we're actually aiming to do here is sort of a narrow cylinder, not necessarily a bowl, because we're aiming for something that has a bit of an angle and the bottom is a little flatter and straight. So I'm going to go on in, two thumbs close together. Now, what's super important to the type of bowl I want to do is I want a super thick foot. I want it to be raised really high. So if you look right there, I've got about over an inch, and I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to pull straight open. Got some band-aids on my fingers, so we're stuck there. And I'm aiming to sort of open up, I want to say it's about 4 inches. And I really want to compress that, especially since I'm leaving so much clay down on the bottom. Okay, now we're going to start to pull our walls. When we end up with this little funky lip here, that's from opening up. I definitely want to compress that back into my pot. Some of it will come off because it doesn't want to attach back, but you definitely want to start with an even lip down here. So now we're going to start to pull, slow my wheel down a little, and I'm using my whole hand. You know, obviously with the smaller piece of clay, we would use just our fingers, but I'm aiming for some pretty massive pulling here. You may have noticed I've changed wheels. I'm also dealing with a different piece of clay than I first started my little intro. I'm wearing different clothes too, different day. That first one had a lot of air bubbles in it, so decided to make it something else. Okay, so I'm actually just pulling up a cylinder. At this point, I'm going evenly consistent. I'm starting to gradually insinuate bowl, at least on the inside. Let me get that water out. Again, I'm getting a lot of the water out on purpose quickly because I do have such a thick bottom. And I don't want it to just sit in there and eat away at the clay. So now is when I'm going to start to to gradually thicken my lip as I go up. So right here, I'm going to aim for it to be thin. Then we're going to get a little thicker and a little thicker because we want this to end up all the way over here. Again, my hands are close to my body, and the minute I have the ability to get my 2 hands to touch, they do. Really want that an angle on the bottom to keep pressing down. Notice now I am starting to sort of insinuate the shape that I'm aiming for. If you've got a couple of little bumpy parts, it's okay, because we're going to go in with a big giant rib to straighten those out. So now my walls were a little thick, but as I start to stretch them out, they start to get thinner. That's why we don't want to start with it too thin to begin with. Notice I'm going straight up and down on the bottom because that's where my foot is going to go. And then I start to gradually stretch my clay out. Until we get there. One of my professors years ago, Mary Rahm, R-O-A-H-M, could throw these beautiful style bowls like this with porcelain, which porcelain is super hard to work with, but she would get it paper thin. I didn't really, I wasn't star ceramics student back there. She was one of my first students. She probably wouldn't even know who the hell I am. So I never felt comfortable asking her how she did that. Okay. So now I'm going to do this last sort of pull to kind of get an idea of how thick my walls are going to be once I stretch it out. Okay. Fix my lip. Now I'm going to go at it with the heat gun. You could just let this sit for a while. I'm not a fan of rushing the process, but in this case, I feel it's necessary. All right, so I'm gonna get started. See you guys in a little while. Hi guys, I'm back. Okay, so what I've done is I have used the heat gun. I've had it aim in one spot from the bottom to the top with the wheel going relatively slow. I then worked on the inside of it. I'm not looking for it to be leather hard or too dry. I just want it to be where it's not so tacky. It has a little bit of integrity to it. I want to be able to stretch it, but I don't want it to stretch where it's so wet that it flops over. This is where I go at it with my Mud Tools giant rubber rib. It's the harder rubber, and I'm actually going to start by using this side, and then I'm going to move into this side. All right, tool is always wet, and basically what I'm going to do is just sort of stretch it out. I want to stretch that bottom part so that it's a little straighter to what I have on the outside. You may notice I'm starting to go up, and the important part about using rib is you go up until it's completely off of the pot. You will eventually take a little bit of clay off of it. Now I'm going to go back in with this side, and I'm going to stretch. I'm going to try not to dig any clay out of the bottom there. Add some more water. Actually, I'm going to go this way. You'll notice that the clay has a bit of plasticity to it so that it can handle the stretch. I'm doing this gradually because it's such a waste if I mess this up, right? Okay. Now I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to go ahead and push that back, down, right up till I get to the top. Mess that up down on the bottom there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do the outside. And I'm going to take my wet hand and I'm going to push the clay up against the side of the tool. The tool sort of serves as a wall. Try this again, a little farther. My tool is getting a little bit more of an angle, trying to defy gravity. Get the water out of the inside. So right now it looks as though it's gradually gonna hit the table, but we're actually going to give it a real good foot. A little bit of a wobble too. We're gonna see if we can fix that with a smaller rib. This is our Dirty Girls wood rib. It's gonna help me sort of fix that a little bit. Close one eye. A little easier to see what I'm doing. Like that again. And I'm just gradually telling the clay that I want it to be at this sort of angle. I'm gonna go until I come right off. A little bit of a wobble in that lip. I accidentally hit it when I was doing something earlier. I thought I'd fixed it, and I did not. All right. So I think that if I go any further at this point, we may have a little bit of a disaster. So we are gonna stop right here. Maybe I go ahead and I give myself this little swirly thing on the inside. And let's go ahead and call that a pot. Stay tuned, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and trim this another day. The trick is gonna be, how do I get a bat big enough to trim this? Didn't think about that. See you later.